I woke to footsteps at 3 a.m. My son and daughter-in-law stood over my bed holding a pillow. "Do it now," she whispered. I opened my eyes and said, "The camera's been recording for 6 months. The police are watching live." Before we start, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. My name is Jean, and at 68 years old, I never imagined I'd fear my own family. Looking back now, I wonder how I missed the signs for so long. Maybe love makes you blind, or maybe I just couldn't accept that the boy I raised would ever wish me harm. Let me tell you who I was before that terrifying night changed everything. For 40 years, I raised 3 children completely alone after my husband Daniel died in a construction accident. The insurance money barely covered his funeral, and I was left with 3 kids under 10 and a mortgage I couldn't afford. But I didn't give up. I couldn't give up. Those babies needed me. I worked double shifts at the hospital as a nursing assistant, coming home with swollen feet and aching backs. My hands became rough from constant sanitizer and cleaning, but they stayed gentle enough to braid my daughter's hair and check my son's homework. I remember falling asleep standing up while making dinner, waking with a jolt before the pasta burned. There were nights I ate nothing but leftover crusts from my children's sandwiches, because payday was still 3 days away and they needed proper meals. My son Michael was my pride and joy, my middle child who always tried to take care of everyone else. Even as a little boy, he'd save half his lunch to bring home for me. "Mama needs to eat too," he'd say with those big brown eyes that looked just like his father's. He studied by candlelight when we couldn't afford electricity, earned scholarships through pure determination, and became the first person in our entire family to graduate college. I cried so hard at his graduation that the people behind us offered me tissues. When Michael married Sarah 5 years ago, I thought God was finally rewarding my struggles. She seemed perfect for him. She was beautiful, educated, came from a good family, and most importantly, she made my son smile in a way I hadn't seen since his father died. At their wedding, Sarah hugged me tight and whispered, "You're not losing a son, Mom. You're gaining a daughter who will love you forever." Those words meant everything to a woman who'd been alone for so long. When my arthritis got bad 2 years ago and I couldn't manage the stairs in my apartment anymore, they insisted I move in with them. Sarah personally decorated the guest room above their garage, painting it my favorite shade of lavender and hanging pictures of our entire family on the walls. She drove me to every doctor's appointment, held my hand during injections, and learned to cook my mother's soup recipe just the way I liked it. I gave them everything I had. My entire savings of $30,000 went toward their house down payment because Sarah said it would be our family home forever. Every weekend I watched their 2 children, Emma and little James, treating them like the treasures they were. I taught Emma to knit, helped James with his reading, and told them stories about their grandfather who would have loved them so much. Everyone at church, at the senior center, at the grocery store, they all said the same thing. "Jean, you're so lucky to have such a loving family. Not many children take care of their parents these days." And I believed them. I believed I was blessed. I wrote thank you prayers in my journal every single night, grateful for this beautiful evening of my life. That's what makes what happened next so unthinkable. My days in Michael and Sarah's home followed a peaceful rhythm that made me feel useful and loved. Every morning at 6 a.m., I'd wake naturally without an alarm, my body trained by decades of early hospital shifts. The first thing I'd do was peek out my lace curtains at the garden below, watching the morning doves gather at the bird feeder I'd installed. Michael had helped me hang it on my birthday, standing on the ladder while I directed him to the perfect spot where I could see it from my bed. By 6:30, I'd have my first cup of tea on the small porch attached to my room, wrapped in the quilt my mother made before she passed. The morning air carried the scent of Sarah's roses mixed with fresh dew, and I'd sit there reading my daily devotional, highlighting passages that spoke to my heart. Sometimes Michael would spot me from the kitchen window and wave, already dressed in his business suit, that same crooked smile from when he was 7 years old. Breakfast was always a family affair. I'd come down around 7 to help Sarah with the children. Emma, 8 years old and full of opinions, liked her eggs scrambled, but only if I made them with a splash of milk and a sprinkle of cheese, just like I used to make for her father. James, only 5, insisted on dinosaur-shaped pancakes every Tuesday and Thursday. Sarah would laugh and roll her eyes playfully, saying, "Nana Jean spoils you both rotten," but she'd always squeeze my shoulder affectionately as she said it. After Michael left for his accounting firm and Sarah headed to her boutique marketing business, the house became my domain. I'd tidy up while humming old hymns, teaching Emma to fold fitted sheets properly on Saturdays, showing James how to organize his toys by color. The children loved my stories about the old days when phones had cords and cartoons only came on Saturday mornings. Their giggles filled the house like music, especially when I'd demonstrate the twist or the mashed potato dance moves from my youth. Lunch was often at the senior center on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where I led the knitting circle. My friends Martha and Gloria always saved me a seat, and we'd work on blankets for the homeless, shelter while gossiping about our medications and grandchildren. "You're glowing, Jean," Martha would often say. "That family of yours must be treating you like a queen." I'd beam with pride, passing around recent photos of Emma's dance recital and James's first soccer game on my phone that Sarah had patiently taught me to use. Afternoons meant homework help at the kitchen table, my reading glasses perched on my nose while Emma practiced multiplication, and James traced letters. I'd make them apple slices with peanut butter, cutting them into little flowers the way their father used to love. Sarah would come home around 4, always greeting me with, "How was your day, Mom?" and actually listening to the answer. She'd share office gossip while we prepared dinner together, her chopping vegetables while I stirred sauces, working in comfortable synchronization. Sunday dinners were sacred in our house. My daughter Rebecca would drive up from the city with her husband, my youngest son Thomas would bring his latest girlfriend, and we'd gather around the dining room table that had belonged to my parents. I'd make my famous pot roast with all the fixings, the recipe my grandmother brought from Ireland. Michael would say grace, always ending with, "And thank you for bringing Mom to live with us," which made my eyes misty every single time. Evenings were my favorite. After baths and bedtime stories for the children, I'd settle into my room with my knitting needles and the crime shows I pretended not to love. Sarah would often bring me chamomile tea around 9 p.m., checking if I needed anything. Some nights, Michael would knock softly and sit on my bed, talking about his day or asking advice about work situations. Those quiet moments felt like gifts. Before sleep, I'd write in my gratitude journal, always finding 3 things to be thankful for, though I could have listed 30. This was the life I'd prayed for all those hard years. This was my reward for the sacrifices. This was perfect. The first crack in my perfect world appeared on a Thursday evening in early March. I'd come downstairs earlier than usual to get my knitting bag, which I'd left in the living room after helping Emma with a school project. As I approached the doorway, I heard Sarah's voice, sharp and urgent, completely different from her usual honey-sweet tone. "We can't wait much longer," she was saying. "The rezoning vote is in 6 months, and if we don't have control by then—" Her words cut off abruptly when the floorboard creaked under my slippered foot. I entered to find Sarah and Michael sitting close together on the couch, a manila folder spread between them. Sarah's laptop snapped shut so quickly that the sound made me jump. "Mom!" Michael's voice came out higher than normal. "We didn't hear you come down." His smile looked painted on, not reaching his eyes, which darted nervously to Sarah and back to me. "Just getting my knitting bag, dear," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the strange flutter in my chest. "What are you two working on so late?" "Oh, just boring business stuff," Sarah said, her usual warm smile sliding back into place like a mask. "Tax planning, you know how it is. Would you like some tea, Mom? I was just about to make some." The way she gathered those papers and held them against her chest, the way Michael wouldn't quite meet my eyes, it all felt wrong. But I pushed the feeling down. These were my children. They loved me. I was being silly. Over the next few weeks, the strange moments multiplied like weeds in a garden. Conversations would stop mid-sentence when I entered rooms. I'd catch Sarah closing browser tabs on the computer we shared in the kitchen, her fingers moving faster than I'd ever seen them type. Once, I walked past their bedroom and heard Michael say, "But she's my mother," in a pleading tone, followed by Sarah's harsh whisper. "That's exactly why you need to stop being so emotional about this." My mail started arriving already opened, not obviously torn, but carefully unsealed and reglued. The first time, I thought nothing of it. Mistakes happen. But when my Social Security statement arrived with the envelope flap barely holding, and my bank statement had a thumbprint on it that wasn't mine, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Someone was reading my mail before I got it. Then there were the phone calls. Sarah's cell would ring and she'd look at the screen, glance at me, and step outside to answer. She'd return with explanations I hadn't asked for. Just a client, or telemarketer, or wrong number. But wrong numbers don't require 15-minute conversations in the garage. One afternoon, while dusting their bedroom because Sarah had a migraine, I noticed a notepad by the bedside phone. My name was written at the top, circled multiple times with numbers below it. Dollar amounts, my Social Security income, my small pension, figures I recognized. But there were other numbers too, much larger ones, with question marks beside them. The children started acting different too. Emma, usually so chatty, would look at her mother before answering my questions about school. James stopped running to hug me when I came downstairs, instead glancing at his parents first as if seeking permission. It broke my heart in ways I couldn't explain. The house felt different. The air seemed heavier, charged with secrets. Laughter sounded forced. Smiles lasted a second too long, or not long enough. Even the family photos on the wall seemed to watch me with suspicious eyes. My safe haven was becoming a place where I checked over my shoulder, where I listened for footsteps, where I wondered what they discussed in those whispers that died when I appeared. But still, I told myself I was imagining things. This was my son. This was my family. Families don't harbor dark secrets, do they? I spent the next 3 weeks constructing elaborate explanations for everything I'd witnessed, building a fortress of denial brick by brick. Lying in bed at night, I'd stare at the ceiling and lecture myself like I was one of my own children, caught up in foolish worries. Joan Marie Henderson, I'd whisper to myself, using my full maiden name the way my mother used to when she meant business. You're becoming a paranoid old woman, and that's exactly what you swore you'd never be. My own mother had spent her final years suspicious of everyone, convinced the mailman was stealing from her, certain the neighbors were spying. I'd promised myself I'd never become that person. The opened mail? Well, the postal service wasn't what it used to be. Just last week, Martha from the senior center complained about getting her neighbor's electric bill. These young mail carriers probably steamed everything open by accident with their fancy sorting machines. Nothing sinister about it. Those hushed conversations that stopped when I entered? Sarah was probably planning my birthday surprise. My 69th was coming up in 2 months, and she'd thrown me that beautiful garden party last year with all my friends from church. This year, she probably wanted to top it. Maybe they were even planning to fly in my sister from Florida. The thought made me smile. Yes, that had to be it. The tax documents and financial discussions made perfect sense, too. Michael had always been responsible about money, learned from watching me squeeze every penny during his childhood. He was probably just making sure my affairs were in order, being a good son, planning for my future care needs. Wasn't that what responsible children did? I should be grateful, not suspicious. I doubled down on being the perfect mother and grandmother. I baked Michael's favorite chocolate chip cookies twice that week, using extra butter the way he loved them. I reorganized Sarah's entire pantry while she was at work, labeling everything with my label maker, knowing how she appreciated organization. I spent extra time with the children, helping Emma build a solar system model that won first place in the science fair, teaching James to tie his shoes with the bunny ear method. Your family is so lucky to have you. the cashier at the grocery store said as I bought ingredients for Sunday's feast. Not many mothers-in-law are this devoted. I nodded and smiled, pushing down the tiny voice that whispered something was wrong. When Sarah brought me tea that evening, I grabbed her hand gently. "Sarah, dear, you know you can talk to me about anything, right? If you and Michael are having financial troubles or any kind of stress, I'm here to help." Her face cycled through several expressions before settling on concern. "Oh, Mom, you're so sweet to worry, but everything's fine. Better than fine, actually. Michael might be getting a promotion soon. Why would you even think something's wrong?" "No reason," I lied, patting her hand. "Just wanted you to know I'm here." That night, I wrote in my journal with determined strokes, "I will not become a burden to my children with unfounded suspicions. I will not poison their home with my fears. I will trust the family I raised." I underlined the word trust 3 times. I even called my daughter Rebecca to test my theory. "Have you noticed anything strange about Michael lately?" I asked casually during our weekly phone call. "Strange? No, why? Has something happened?" No. I just wondered if he'd mentioned any surprises he might be planning. For my birthday, perhaps?" Rebecca laughed. "Mom, you're terrible at fishing for information. If he's planning something, my lips are sealed." "See?" I told myself. "Even Rebecca knows about the surprise." "You're being ridiculous, Jean. These are the people who love you most in the world. Evil doesn't come wrapped in familiar faces and Sunday dinners. It doesn't call you Mom and bring you tea." But deep in my chest, beneath all my desperate reasoning, that flutter of wrongness kept beating like a second heart. The truth began revealing itself on a rainy Tuesday afternoon when I was doing what I'd done 1,000 times before, sorting laundry. Michael had rushed out that morning for an early meeting, leaving his navy suit jacket draped over the kitchen chair. I picked it up to hang it properly, the way his father always liked his suits treated, when several papers fell from the inner pocket. As I bent to retrieve them, my arthritic knees protesting, the letterhead caught my eye. Mutual Life Insurance Company. My hands trembled slightly as I unfolded the documents. It was my life insurance policy, the one Daniel had taken out when we first married, now worth $500,000 after decades of compound interest. But it wasn't just the policy. Yellow highlighter marked specific sections about beneficiaries, and sticky notes in Sarah's distinctive purple ink were attached to several pages. "Check monthly premium status," read one note. Another said, "Confirm no suicide clause after 2 years." But the one that made my blood run cold was stuck to the accidental death clause. Double payout, 1 million natural causes, illness, age, standard amount only. I stood frozen in my own kitchen, the familiar space suddenly feeling foreign and dangerous. My legs wobbled and I had to grip the counter to steady myself. This couldn't mean what it looked like. There had to be another explanation. But what innocent reason could they have for studying my death benefits? With shaking fingers, I pulled out my phone and took photos of every page, every note, every highlighted section. Then I carefully returned the papers to Michael's jacket pocket, arranging them exactly as they'd fallen. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears as I hung the jacket in the hall closet where he'd find it later. That evening, after everyone had gone to bed, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with possibilities, each more terrible than the last. Around midnight, I crept downstairs to use the family computer in the kitchen. Sarah always left it logged into her account, trusting me not to snoop. That trust felt like a mockery now. I opened the browser history, my stomach churning with guilt and fear. The recent searches made my hands freeze over the keyboard. Power of attorney, elderly parent, Pennsylvania. How to prove parent has dementia. Nursing home commitment process. Can power of attorney change life insurance beneficiary? Signs of elder incompetence legal standard. Page after page of searches, dozens of them, dating back 2 months. My son and his wife had been researching how to take control of my life, my money, my freedom. I scrolled further, finding visits to legal sites, elder law attorneys, even a forum called Dealing with Difficult Elderly Parents, where someone with the username SarahMPA had posted asking for advice about an aging mother-in-law who won't accept she needs help. The response posts were visible in the preview. Strangers on the internet were advising my daughter-in-law on how to have me declared incompetent. Document everything. Get a friendly doctor's evaluation. Video any confused moments. Sometimes you have to act in their best interest even if they resist. I found more. Bookmarked articles about inheritance tax, about contesting wills, about the average life expectancy for women my age with arthritis. There was even a calculator showing how much $500,000 would be worth invested over different time periods. They'd run scenarios for if I died this year versus next year versus in 5 years. My whole body shook as I took photos of everything with my phone, making sure to capture the dates and timestamps. Then I carefully cleared the browser's recent activity to hide that I'd been snooping. As I climbed the stairs back to my room, each step felt like a mountain. The family photos lining the stairway walls seemed to mock me. All those smiling faces, all those happy memories, all those lies. I locked my bedroom door that night for the first time since moving in, shoving my dresser against it for good measure. Then I sat on my bed, surrounded by the evidence on my phone, and faced the terrible truth. My son and his wife were planning something awful, and I was completely alone. 3 days later, I couldn't carry the weight of this knowledge alone anymore. Sarah had taken the children to her mother's house for the weekend, giving me the perfect opportunity. I found Michael alone in his study, working on his laptop with his reading glasses perched on his nose, looking so much like his father that my heart cracked a little more. "Michael, we need to talk." My voice came out steadier than I felt. He looked up, immediately noting my serious tone. "Everything okay, Mom?" I closed the door behind me and sat in the chair across from his desk. Then I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos of the insurance documents. "I found these in your jacket pocket by accident." The color drained from his face like water from a sink. His mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out. His hands started trembling, and he pushed the laptop away as if it might burn him. "Mom, I can explain." "Then explain why you and Sarah are researching how to have me declared incompetent. Explain why you're calculating my life insurance payout. Explain why my death benefits are suddenly so interesting to you both." Michael's face crumpled like paper. He buried his head in his hands, and when he looked up, tears were streaming down his cheeks. "Mom, we're drowning. The business Sarah started, it failed. We're $300,000 in debt. The house is in foreclosure. We're going to lose everything. So you decided to kill me for money?" The words came out sharp as glass. "No, God, no, Mom. Sarah said if we had power of attorney, we could access your retirement funds, help manage things better. She said you'd never know, that we'd pay it back once we got on our feet." I stood up, rage replacing fear. "Don't you dare blame this all on Sarah. You're a grown man, Michael. Your father would be disgusted." That broke him completely. He sobbed like the little boy who once cried in my arms over scraped knees. But this wasn't a wound I could kiss better. "There's more, isn't there?" I pressed, seeing the guilt eating him alive. He nodded miserably, then pulled out a key from his desk drawer and unlocked the bottom filing cabinet. Inside was Sarah's planning diary. He handed it to me with shaking hands. "I found this last week. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know what to do." I opened the diary to the bookmarked page. Sarah's neat handwriting spelled out my fate in purple ink. Timeline. Month 1-2. Document confusion episodes. Creative necessary. Month 3. Dr. Coleman evaluation. Already agreed to dementia diagnosis. Month 4. Power of attorney filing. Month 5-6. Liquidate her assets. If resistance, accidental fall, medication mix-up. M2 weak, but I'll handle it. The old woman's lived long enough. Once we have control, nature takes its course, or we help it along. My legs gave out, and I collapsed back into the chair. She's planning to murder me. And you knew? I found out last week, I swear. Mom, I've been trying to figure out how to stop her, how to protect you without destroying my children's lives. She's not who I thought she was. She's done this before. What do you mean, before? Michael pulled out another folder, his hands shaking violently. Her first husband, Mom. He died from a fall 2 years after their wedding. His life insurance paid for her business degree, and his mother, she went missing after signing over her house. They found her body a year later, ruled natural causes, but the room spun. I was living with a serial killer, and my son, my baby boy, had known for a week and said nothing. You chose her over me, I whispered. Mom, please. You knew she wanted me dead, and you stayed silent. That's all I need to know. Michael reached for my hand, but I pulled away. The stranger wearing my son's face meant nothing to me now. The betrayal was complete. My son was gone, replaced by a coward who would let his mother die rather than face his mistakes. That night, I couldn't sleep. Michael's revelations about Sarah's past sent me down a rabbit hole that revealed a conspiracy far more terrifying than simple greed. Using the laptop I'd bought secretly at the library's recommendation, I researched Sarah's maiden name, Sarah Coleman. What I found made my blood turn to ice. Her first husband, David Walsh, had indeed died mysteriously just 2 years after their wedding. The news articles called it a tragic accident. He'd fallen down the stairs after supposedly mixing sleeping pills with alcohol. But the comments section told a different story. David's sister had written, he never drank and he was terrified of heights. He wouldn't even go near those stairs without holding the railing. The life insurance payout was $750,000. David's mother, Patricia Walsh, had disappeared 6 months after her son's death. The police report I found online stated she'd signed over her property to Sarah before vanishing during a spontaneous trip to Mexico. Her body was discovered a year later in a wooded area 2 states away. Despite suspicious circumstances, it was ruled natural causes, heart failure. The property Sarah inherited was worth $400,000. But the web went deeper. Sarah's maiden name wasn't even Coleman originally, it was Kozloff. She'd changed it legally at 18. Her brother, the one Michael mentioned, was attorney Peter Coleman, who had an interesting history. 3 elderly clients had died under mysterious circumstances after naming him executor of their estates. Each death was ruled natural, but the pattern was unmistakable. I discovered a private investigator's blog post from 2 years ago titled, "The Kozlov Family, A Pattern of Elder Fraud." The post had been taken down, but the cached version revealed that Sarah's cousin was Dr. Richard Coleman, who'd lost his license in New Jersey for falsifying medical documents, but somehow still practiced in Pennsylvania. The same Dr. Coleman who was supposedly going to diagnose me with dementia. My hands shook as I connected the dots. This wasn't just about my life insurance. Buried in county records, I found something I'd forgotten about. The old family land in Chester County that my grandmother had left me. 20 acres of farmland I'd never thought much about, paying the small taxes yearly without consideration. But now, with the new commercial development zones, that land was worth nearly $3 million. Sarah knew. Somehow she'd found out what I hadn't even realized myself. I pulled up Sarah's business records. Her boutique marketing firm was a shell company, registered in Delaware, with no real clients. The address listed was a mailbox at a UPS store. Her supposed business trips were lies. The debt Michael mentioned might be real, but it was probably from failed schemes, gambling, or funding their lifestyle while they waited for me to die. Then I found the most chilling piece of evidence. On a genealogy website, someone had created a family tree for the Kozlov family. Under Sarah's name, there were notes. Married David Walsh, 2019. Deceased 2021. Married Michael Henderson, 2020. The dates were wrong. Sarah had married Michael while still legally married to David. She'd been planning David's death while seducing my son. Going deeper, I found a pattern spanning 15 years. The Kozlov family had moved through 4 states, always leaving after an elderly relative or in-law died mysteriously. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. A trail of dead seniors and inherited wealth. They were professional predators, and I was their current target. I discovered forged documents on a legal site's template section with my name already filled in. Power of attorney papers, living will changes, property transfer deeds, all dated weeks in the future, waiting to be filed. They'd even created a fake email address in my name, sending messages to Michael about feeling confused and needing help. The conspiracy included at least 6 people: Sarah, her brother Peter, her cousin Dr. Coleman, 2 other cousins who worked in banking and real estate, and a notary who'd certified dozens of suspicious documents. They were organized, experienced, and according to my research, had stolen over $10 million over the past 15 years from at least 12 victims. And now, they had their sights set on me. I made it back to my room before the collapse came. The moment I locked the door, my legs gave out completely, and I crumbled to the lavender carpet Sarah had chosen, supposedly because it was my favorite color. The sobs came from somewhere deep in my chest, a place I hadn't accessed since the day the police told me Daniel was dead. I crawled to my bed and pulled down the photo album I kept on the nightstand, my fingers tracing over the pictures through my tears. There was Michael at 6 months old, gummy smile and chubby cheeks, reaching for the camera. His first day of kindergarten, proud in his new backpack that took 3 months of saving to afford. Him at 8, holding the Mother's Day card he'd made that said, "My mom is my hero," in crayon. "Where did I lose you?" I whispered to the photos. "When did my baby boy become someone who could watch his mother die?" I found our last family Christmas photo, everyone gathered around my dining table. Sarah's arm around my shoulders, Michael kissing my cheek, the grandchildren on my lap. We looked so happy. Had it all been a performance? Had every "I love you, Mom" been a lie? Every hug calculated? Every smile practiced in a mirror? The pain felt physical, like someone had reached into my chest and was squeezing my heart with both hands. 40 years of sacrifice, and for what? I remembered the nights I'd gone to bed hungry so Michael could have new shoes for basketball, the promotion I'd turned down because it meant working nights when he needed help with homework, the dating, opportunities I'd rejected because my children come first. I thought about his wedding day, how I'd spent my entire savings on helping with costs, wanting him to have the perfect start to married life. I'd worn a dress from the thrift store so I could give them an extra $1,000 for their honeymoon. Sarah had hugged me that day, tears in her eyes, calling me the mother she'd never had. What a performance. What a fool I'd been. The photo of Daniel stared back at me from the nightstand, his smile frozen in time at 35, forever young while I'd grown old alone. "You should have taken me with you," I told his picture. "You left me here to fail. I failed our son. I failed as a mother." I thought about Emma and James sleeping peacefully down the hall, unaware their parents were monsters. What would happen to them? Would Sarah teach them to be predators too? Would they grow up visiting their father in prison? Their grandmother's death would be just another family story, twisted into whatever narrative Sarah crafted. The worst part was the loneliness. Who could I tell? Who would believe that sweet Sarah, who volunteered at church bake sales, was a serial killer? That Michael, respected accountant and loving son, was complicit in his mother's planned murder? I had no real proof that would stand up legally, just researched suspicions and overheard conversations. I looked at my bottle of heart medication on the nightstand. It would be so easy. Take them all, go to sleep, never wake up. At least then I'd die on my own terms, not smothered by my son's wife while he stood by. My death would be my choice, my final act of control. They wouldn't get the insurance money if I did it myself. The policy had a suicide clause. I could deny them that final victory. I held the bottle, feeling its weight, imagining the peace of just letting go. No more fear, no more betrayal, no more wondering when they'd come for me, no more looking at my son and seeing a stranger. Just quiet, just rest. But then I saw Daniel's face in my mind, not from the photos, but from my memories. "My gene doesn't quit," he'd said during my difficult labor with Michael. "My gene fights." I set the bottle down, wiped my tears, sat up straighter. If they wanted me dead, they'd have to work for it, and I'd make sure the whole world knew exactly who they were when they tried. I sat on my bedroom floor until dawn, watching the sky change from black to purple to pink through my window. As the first rays of sunlight hit Daniel's photo on my nightstand, something shifted inside me. The tears dried up, replaced by something harder, sharper. Anger, not the hot rage that burns out quickly, but the cold kind that could fuel a war. "They picked the wrong old lady," I said to Daniel's picture, my voice hoarse from crying but steady with newfound resolve. I pulled myself up using the bedpost, my arthritis screaming, but I ignored it. Pain was just information now, telling me I was still alive, still capable of fighting. I walked to my mirror and stared at my reflection. Red eyes, swollen face, gray hair, a mess. I looked defeated, but looks could be deceiving. Sarah had taught me that. "You survived being a widow at 28, I told my reflection. "You raised 3 children alone. You worked double shifts with pneumonia. You buried your parents, your siblings, your best friends. You've been fighting your whole life, Jean Marie Henderson. You don't stop now." I made a mental list of my advantages. They thought I was weak, stupid, defenseless. They had no idea I'd been watching crime shows for 20 years, that I'd helped solve cold cases online with other retirees for fun, that I'd spent decades as a hospital worker observing human behavior at its worst and best. They underestimated me because I was old, because I was kind, because I loved too easily. That would be their downfall. First, I needed to get smart about this. No emotional confrontations, no accusations without proof. I had to think like they did. Strategic, calculated, 3 steps ahead. Sarah was a predator, but even predators had weaknesses. Her weakness was her arrogance, her belief that she was smarter than everyone else. Michael's weakness was his guilt, the conscience he couldn't quite kill despite his choices. I opened my journal and began writing, but not my usual gratitude list. This was a war plan. Assets. Knowledge of their plan. Element of surprise. They don't know I know. 40 years of hospital connections. Clean criminal record. Sympathy factor. Elderly widow. Access to house and computers. Small emergency fund they don't know about. $5,000 in cash hidden in tampon box. Library friend who taught me about secure laptops and encrypted files. Objectives: survive, expose them publicly, protect grandchildren, ensure justice, preserve assets for legitimate heirs, Rebecca and Thomas, document everything, stay 3 steps ahead. Immediate needs: security cameras, lawyer, not local, they might know them, recording devices, backup documentation, safe communication method, allies. I thought about my daughter Rebecca, my youngest son Thomas. Should I tell them? No, not yet. They'd confront Michael immediately, all emotion and no strategy. They'd warn him I was on to them. I needed to handle this alone until I had irrefutable proof. The sun was fully up now, and I heard movement downstairs. Sarah was back from her mother's with the children. I could hear Emma's laughter, James asking for pancakes. Normal family morning sounds that now felt like performances in a play where I was the only one who didn't have a script. I stood up, straightened my nightgown, and practiced my smile in the mirror. Not too bright. That would be suspicious. Just the gentle, slightly tired smile of an elderly woman who'd had trouble sleeping. Nothing more. "You want to play games?" I whispered to the house, to Sarah somewhere below, to Michael who'd chosen money over mother. "Let's play, but we're using my rules now." I thought of David Walsh's sister, who'd known something was wrong but couldn't prove it. Patricia Walsh, who died alone and unmourned except by strangers on the internet. The 12 other victims I'd found in my research, they deserve justice too. This isn't just about me anymore, I said to Daniel's photo, touching it gently. This is about all of us, and I promise you, my love, they won't win. Not this time. My revenge began with a trip to Best Buy at 6 a.m. the next Tuesday, telling Sarah I had an early doctor's appointment. The young clerk, Brandon, probably thought I was a paranoid grandmother when I asked for their most discreet security cameras. Paying in cash I'd hidden for years in that tampon box in my bathroom cabinet. I need cameras that upload to the cloud immediately, I told him, remembering what my library friend Marcus had taught me. Something that can't be deleted locally, that saves everything off-site. Brandon's eyes lit up with understanding. Having trouble with someone, ma'am? You could say that, I replied, and something in my tone made him lean in conspiratorially. Let me show you our nanny cam selection. These ones look like smoke detectors, phone chargers, even picture frames. They record in night vision, activated by motion, and upload directly to a secure server. Even if someone destroys the camera, the footage is already saved. I bought 6 cameras, a voice recorder that looked like a pen, and a small device that could record phone conversations. The total came to $1,800, but staying alive was worth the investment. Installing them required patience and cunning. I placed one in the smoke detector in my room, another disguised as a phone charger in the kitchen, where Sarah and Michael had their hushed conversations. The picture frame camera went in the living room, positioned perfectly to capture the couch where they did their planning. I hid another in the hallway facing my bedroom door and one in the garage where Sarah made her secret phone calls. The 6th camera was my insurance policy. I installed it in their bedroom while they were at work, hidden inside the heating vent with a clear view of their bed and desk area. If they were planning my murder, they'd discuss it where they felt safest. The installation took 3 hours, my arthritis screaming the entire time, but I persevered. Next came the lawyer. I couldn't use anyone local. Sarah might have connections. Instead, I contacted Jennifer Martinez, a former patient from my hospital days who'd become a successful attorney in Philadelphia. She specialized in elder law and had a reputation for being ruthless when protecting seniors. Mrs. Henderson, she said during our secret meeting at a coffee shop 2 towns over, what you're describing is conspiracy to commit murder. We need to involve law enforcement. Not yet, I insisted. They'll deny everything, and I'll look like a paranoid old woman. I need irrefutable proof. I need them to incriminate themselves. Jennifer understood. She helped me create a new will using her office's address, leaving everything to charity except for $1 each to Michael and Sarah, a detail that would prevent them from contesting it. She set up a trust for my grandchildren's education that Sarah couldn't touch. She also connected me with Detective Raymond Walsh, ironically sharing the same last name as Sarah's first victim. My sister went to school with David Walsh, Detective Walsh told me during our clandestine meeting. I've been watching Sarah Kozlov for years, but could never prove anything. If you can get evidence, I'll make sure they pay for everything they've done. I started recording everything. The pen recorder was always in my pocket. I backed up all my findings on 3 separate cloud storage services and a physical hard drive I kept in a safety deposit box at a bank they didn't know about. I documented every strange incident, every overheard conversation, every suspicious action in a detailed journal with dates and times. The masterstroke was my performance. I began playing slightly confused, but not enough to seem urgent. I'd forget where I put my reading glasses, while recording their excited discussions about my declining mental state. I'd ask the same question twice at dinner, watching Sarah's eyes light up as she made notes in her phone. I gave them the rope to hang themselves with. Meanwhile, I secretly transferred my valuable items to Rebecca's house during my library visits. Family jewelry, important documents, photos, everything that mattered. I opened a new bank account in a different state, slowly moving money in small amounts that wouldn't trigger attention. I even consulted with a doctor friend who confirmed I was in perfect mental health, documenting everything in sealed records. The trap was set. Now I just needed them to walk into it. The tension in the house became unbearable over the next 2 weeks. Sarah grew increasingly impatient, her sweet facade cracking more each day. I heard her on the garage camera arguing with her brother Peter about timing. The rezoning vote is in 3 weeks. If we don't have control of that land before then, we lose millions. Michael started drinking heavily, something his father never did, and something I'd raised him to avoid. Empty bourbon bottles appeared in the trash. His hands shook during dinner. Dark circles ringed his eyes. The guilt was eating him alive, but not enough to make him stop Sarah's plan. He was weak, just as she'd written in her diary. On a Wednesday evening, I overheard the conversation that sealed their fate. The kitchen camera captured everything in crystal clear audio. "We do it tomorrow night," Sarah hissed. 3 a.m. The old lady takes Ambien every night. I've been crushing extra into her tea for a week. My blood ran cold. I'd been pouring out that tea, suspicious of its bitter taste, but she thought she'd been drugging me. "Sarah, please." Michael's voice was slurred from alcohol. "Can't we just wait for nature to take its course? She's 68. She has a heart condition." "Your mother could live another 20 years. We don't have 20 days. Peter's already filed the preliminary paperwork. Dr. Coleman is ready to sign the competency evaluation dated for last month. Everything's in place. What if something goes wrong?" "Nothing will go wrong." Pillow over the face, 2 minutes. Looks like natural respiratory failure in an elderly woman with health issues. The Ambien in her system explains why she didn't struggle. Clean, simple, done. I can't do it." Sarah's voice turned ice cold. "You don't have to do anything except hold her arms if she struggles. I'll handle the rest. Just like I handled David. Just like I handled his mother. Just like I've handled everything while you've been too weak to do what needs to be done." The camera caught Michael flinching. "You said David's death was an accident." Sarah's laugh was chilling. "Oh, Michael, you're so naive it's almost endearing. There are no accidents in my world, only opportunities. Your mother is an opportunity worth $3 million. Now, are you in or out? Because if you're out, you're a liability, and I handle liabilities the same way I handle opportunities." The threat was clear. Michael was trapped. If he backed out now, Sarah would kill him too. I immediately sent the video to Detective Walsh and Jennifer Martinez through the encrypted app they'd set up for me. "Tomorrow night, 3 a.m., I typed. "Be ready." Detective Walsh responded within minutes. "We'll have units stationed nearby. The moment she enters your room with intent, we move. Keep your cameras rolling. Do not confront them. Your safety is paramount." That final day felt surreal. I made breakfast as usual, helped James with his puzzle, listened to Emma practice piano. Sarah brought me tea, which I pretended to sip, and Michael couldn't meet my eyes at all. At dinner, I made his favorite pot roast, watching him push it around his plate, unable to eat. "You're a good son, Michael," I said suddenly, watching him freeze. "Your father would be proud of the man you've become." He excused himself from the table, and I heard him vomiting in the bathroom. Sarah's eyes narrowed at me suspiciously, but I just smiled my gentle grandmother smile. By 10 p.m., I was in my room, door locked as had become my habit. I took a mild sedative, just enough to stay calm, but not enough to actually sleep. I positioned myself in bed where all the cameras would capture everything. My phone was under my pillow, 911 pre-dialed. The pen recorder was on my nightstand, activated. Detective Walsh texted at midnight. 4 units in position. We have eyes on all exits. The moment she touches you, we move. I lay in the dark, listening to my heartbeat, waiting. At 2:47 a.m., I heard the first footsteps on the stairs. They were coming. This was it. The bedroom door handle turned slowly at 3:02 a.m. I'd pretended to lock it but left it unlatched, knowing they had a key anyway. Through barely opened eyes, I watched 2 shadows creep into my room. The night vision cameras would be capturing everything in perfect detail. Sarah moved with practiced precision, like she'd done this before. She held a pillow from the guest room, not even one of mine, probably to avoid fiber evidence. Michael lingered by the door, his silhouette shaking, reeking of bourbon even from across the room. "Check if she's really asleep," Sarah whispered. Michael approached my bed reluctantly. I kept my breathing deep and even, the sedative helping me stay calm. He leaned over me and I could hear his ragged breathing, smell the alcohol and fear sweating from his pores. "Mom?" he whispered so quietly Sarah probably couldn't hear. "Mom, please wake up." "She's out cold," Sarah snapped. "The Ambien worked. Now hold her arms in case she thrashes." I felt Michael's hands hover over my wrists, trembling but not touching. Sarah positioned herself over me, raising the pillow. This was the moment. I couldn't wait any longer. My eyes snapped open, locking directly with Sarah's. "The camera's been recording for 6 months," I said clearly and calmly. "The police are watching. Live." Sarah froze, the pillow suspended above my face. Her expression cycled from shock to confusion to rage in the span of seconds. "You crazy old bitch!" The bedroom door exploded inward. "Police! Nobody move!" But the real twist came next. Michael suddenly lunged, not at me, but at Sarah, wrestling the pillow from her hands. "I'm sorry," he screamed. Not to her, but to me. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I've been trying to stop her. I've been helping you." Sarah spun on him in fury. "You pathetic—" "I've been recording everything too," Michael sobbed, pulling out his own phone. "Every conversation, every threat. She said she'd kill Emma and James if I didn't go along with it. She killed her first husband. She killed his mother. She was going to kill mine." Detective Walsh stepped forward, but Sarah wasn't done. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You think you outsmarted me? Check your daughter's room, Michael. Check your son's. The poison's already in their humidifiers. Slow-acting, untraceable. They've been breathing it for 3 days. Only I have the antidote." The blood drained from everyone's face. Michael made a strangled sound and bolted for the door, but Walsh grabbed him. "She's bluffing." "Am I?" Sarah smiled coldly. "Little Emma's been complaining of headaches, hasn't she? James has been unusually tired. Those are the early symptoms. 48 hours from now." "You're lying," I said, standing up fully dressed, my voice steady. "Because I replaced those humidifier filters 3 days ago when I saw you tampering with them. I sent the originals to the FBI lab. They confirmed the ricin derivative you used." Sarah's confident mask finally cracked completely. "The children are safe," Detective Walsh confirmed. "We evacuated them an hour ago. They're with their Aunt Rebecca." Michael collapsed to his knees, sobbing with relief. But I wasn't done. "There's more," I announced, pulling out a file Jennifer Martinez had prepared. "David Walsh isn't dead. He's been in witness protection for 2 years, gathering evidence about the Kozlov crime family. He's testifying tomorrow." Sarah went white. "That's impossible. I saw his body." "You saw what the FBI wanted you to see," Walsh said. "A body double, perfectly staged. David's been helping us document everything. The murders, the fraud, the entire network. Your brother Peter was arrested an hour ago. Dr. Coleman, too. Your cousins are in custody across 3 states." Sarah lunged at me with inhuman rage, but the officers restrained her. As they dragged her out, she screamed threats and obscenities that would seal her fate in court. Michael remained on the floor, broken. "Mom, the things she made me do, the people she hurt. I documented everything I could. I left you clues, the opened mail, the visible documents. I was trying to warn you without her knowing." I looked at my son, seeing the truth in his shattered expression. He was weak, yes, complicit, certainly, but also a victim of a master manipulator who'd threatened his children. The cameras had captured everything, including his attempts to wake me, his trying to stop her, his sobbing apologies. Justice would decide his fate. But a mother's love, even betrayed, is a complicated thing. The courtroom was packed 6 months later when Sarah Kozlov Henderson was sentenced to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. The judge called her a calculated predator who targeted society's most vulnerable members with shocking cruelty. She showed no remorse, staring at me with cold hatred until the bailiffs led her away in shackles. Her brother Peter received 25 years, Dr. Coleman 15, and the cousins various sentences ranging from 5 to 12 years. Michael's fate was more complex. His cooperation with authorities, the evidence he'd secretly gathered, and the documented threats against his children earned him a plea deal. 2 years probation, 300 hours of community service at elder care facilities, and mandatory therapy twice a week. The court recognized him as both perpetrator and victim, a man who'd failed his moral obligations but tried to redeem himself before it was too late. I was granted full custody of Emma and James. The day I brought them home, to Rebecca's house, not the tainted place above Sarah's garage, Emma asked me, "Nana Jean, why did Mommy want to hurt you?" "Sometimes people get sick in their hearts and minds, sweetheart," I told her, holding her close. "But you're safe now, and you're loved, and that's what matters." The valuable family land was sold for $3.2 million to a conservation group who would preserve it as farmland, just as my grandmother would have wanted. I established trust funds for all 5 grandchildren, ensuring their education and future were secure. Michael would have no access to these funds, ever. I donated $500,000 to establish the Patricia Walsh Center for Elder Protection, a resource center helping families identify and prevent elder abuse. David Walsh, finally free from witness protection, attended the opening ceremony. We stood together, 2 survivors of Sarah's evil, watching something good rise from the ashes of our trauma. My remaining money went toward a modest townhouse in a retirement community with excellent security and a strong social network. Martha and Gloria from the senior center lived 2 streets over. We played cards on Tuesdays, attended water aerobics on Thursdays, and watched crime shows together on Saturdays, though now I sometimes had to excuse myself when the plots hit too close to home. Rebecca and Thomas rallied around me with fierce protectiveness. Sunday dinners continued, but at Rebecca's house now, with new traditions and careful boundaries. Michael was allowed to attend once a month, supervised, mostly to maintain some stability for his children. He'd aged 10 years and 6 months, his hair gray, his shoulders perpetually slumped with the weight of his choices. During one visit, he asked to speak with me privately. "Mom, I know I don't deserve forgiveness." "You're right," I interrupted. "You don't. You chose money over my life. You let fear control you instead of protecting me. That's something we both have to live with." "I love you, Mom." "I know," I said quietly, "and I love the boy you were, the man you could have been. But trust? That's gone forever, Michael. We can be civil for the children's sake, but we'll never be what we were." He nodded, tears streaming down his face, understanding that some betrayals cut too deep to heal. The nightmares lasted for months. I'd wake at 3 a.m. expecting to see shadows in my doorway. Therapy helped, as did the letters from other seniors who'd escaped similar situations, because my story gave them courage to seek help. I testified before the state legislature about elder abuse, helping pass Jean's Law, which required stricter oversight of power of attorney transfers and regular welfare checks for seniors with sudden document changes. Emma and James thrived despite everything. Their teachers said they were resilient, caring children who looked out for others. I made sure they had therapists too, safe spaces to process their trauma. On good days, they called me Mom instead of Nana. On bad days, they cried for parents who'd never really existed. But we survived. We more than survived. We rebuilt our family on a foundation of truth instead of lies, choosing love over greed, courage over fear. 2 years have passed since that terrifying night when I stared into Sarah's eyes and saw death looking back at me. I'm 70 now, and every morning when I wake up peacefully in my own bed, I remember that I almost didn't make it to this age. But I also remember that I fought back, that I won, and that my story might help save someone else's grandmother, mother, or father. Last week, Emma, now 10, wrote an essay for school about her hero. She chose me. My grandma is brave because she loved us enough to fight for truth, even when it hurt, she wrote. She taught me that sometimes the scariest monsters look like regular people, but love and courage are stronger than any monster. Her teacher sent it to me with a note saying it made her cry. It made me cry too, but these were healing tears, not the desperate sobs of that horrible night when I discovered my son's betrayal. The statistics are staggering. Every year, over 5 million seniors experience elder abuse in America. 1 in 10 people over 60 will face abuse, but only 1 in 24 cases gets reported. Financial exploitation by family members accounts for 60% of these cases. Behind every statistic is a Jean, a Patricia Walsh, a David's mother. Real people who work their entire lives only to have their own families prey on them in their vulnerability. But here's what I learned. The red flags are always there if we're brave enough to see them. That whispered conversation that stops when you enter. The sudden interest in your finances. The push to sign documents you don't understand. The isolation from other family members. The guilt trips designed to make you feel like a burden. These aren't signs of love or concern. They're warning bells. I've spoken at over 50 senior centers now, sharing my story, teaching others to recognize the signs. The most common response I get is, "But I could never believe my children would hurt me." I understand. I was the same way. We raise our children with love, sacrifice everything for them, and can't imagine they'd see us as anything but their beloved parents. But addiction, debt, greed, and sometimes just evil can transform anyone, even the baby you once rocked to sleep. If you're reading this and something feels wrong in your family dynamic, please listen to that instinct, that flutter of wrongness in your chest, that voice saying, "Something's not right." That's your survival instinct, honed by decades of life experience. Don't let anyone convince you it's paranoia or dementia or silly old person fears. You know when you're in danger. Trust yourself. Document everything. Tell someone outside the family. Contact Elder Protective Services. Speak to a lawyer independently. Install security cameras if you can. Keep copies of important documents somewhere safe. Have a backup plan. And remember, you don't owe anyone access to your finances, your home, or your life, regardless of shared DNA. Family isn't just blood. Family is the people who protect you, not prey on you, who celebrate your long life, not plot to end it, who see your value beyond your bank account, who honor the sacrifices you made rather than demanding more. Sarah is serving life in prison. Her network is dismantled. Michael is slowly earning back tiny fragments of trust through years of consistent therapy and genuine remorse. Emma and James are thriving, proof that cycles can be broken. And I'm here, alive, sharing my story because silence protects predators, but truth protects victims. I started this story in the dark at 3 a.m., staring at death. I'm ending it in the morning light, surrounded by the real love of chosen family, true friends, and the knowledge that my worst moment became my strongest victory. What would you do if you discovered your family plotting against you? Would you have the courage to fight back? Would you recognize the warning signs in time? Share your thoughts below. If this story might help someone you know, please share it. Check on your elderly neighbors and relatives. Ask questions. Stay vigilant. Because every senior citizen was once someone's baby, someone's parent, someone who deserves to live their final chapters in peace and dignity, not fear and betrayal. Remember, you're never too old to fight back, never too weak to seek help, and never alone if you reach out. Your life has value beyond any bank account, and you deserve to live it fully until your last natural breath. Stay safe, stay aware, stay alive.